Ida go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. This morning, Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 18, titled The Battle Between Lord Bor and the Demon Hiranyaksha. Text number 1, but before we read, we recite the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maitreya Uvacha. Tad evam akarnya jalesha bhashitam. Mahamanastad vignaya durmadaha. Harer viditva gatim anganaradad. Rasatalam nirvishesha tvaranvitaha. Maitreya Uvacha. Tad evam akarnya jalesha bhashitam. Mahamanastad viganaya durmadaha. Harer viditva gati manganarada. Rasatalam nirvisheshatvaranvitaha. Maitreya Uvacha. Tadeva makarnya jalesha bhashitam. Mahamanastad viganaya durmadaha. Harer viditva gati manganardad. Rasatalam nirvisheshatvaranvitaha. Maitreya, the great sage Maitreya, Uvacha, said, Tat, that, Evam, thus, Akarniya, hearing, Jalaisha, of the controller of water, Varuna. Bhashitam, words. Mahamana, proud. Tat, those words. Viganiya, having paid little heed to. Durmada, vain-glorious. Harehe, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Viditva, having learned. Gatim, the whereabouts. Anga, O dear Vidura. Naradat, from Narada. Rasatalam, to the depths of the ocean. Nirvivishe, entered. Twara Anvita, with great speed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Maitreya continued, the proud and falsely glorious Daitya paid little heed to the words of Varuna, O dear Vidura. He learned from Narada the whereabouts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and hurriedly betook himself to the depths of the ocean. Purport. Materialistic warmongers are not even afraid to fight their mightiest enemy, the personality of Godhead. The demon was very encouraged to learn from Varuna that there was one fighter who could actually combat him, and he was very enthusiastic to search out the Supreme Personality of Godhead just to give him a fight, even though it was predicted by Varuna that by fighting with Vishnu, he would become prey for dogs, jackals, and vultures. Since demoniac persons are less intelligent, they dare to fight with Vishnu, who is known as Ajita, or one who has never been conquered. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'll read the translation again. Chapter 18, text 1. Maitreya continued. The proud and falsely glorious Daitya paid little heed to the words of Varuna. O dear Vidura, he learned from Narada the whereabouts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and hurriedly betook himself to the depths of the ocean. So, chapter 17 concluded, wherein Hiranyaksha was creating nothing but nuisance value for everyone in this universe. And now he has, towards the end of the chapter, we saw that he approached Varuna, wherein he was wanting a good fight. However, Varuna declined and said, the person who's actually going to be the one that will kill you is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so please go and look out for him. And here we see Vidura, sorry, I keep saying Vidura. Apologies. Hiranyaksha finally reaching to the depths of the ocean for where he'll search out Lord Varahadev. And in the purport, an interesting, the very first point that Srila Prabhupada makes, materialistic warmongers are not even afraid to begin to fight with their mightiest enemy, the personality of Godhead. The demon was very encouraged to learn from Varuna that there was one fighter who could actually combat him. And he was very enthusiastic to search out the Supreme Personality of Godhead just to give him a fight. Even though it was predicted by Varuna that by fighting with Vishnu he would become prey for dogs, jackals and vultures. So, this propensity to defy the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that's existed since time immemorial. I mean, that's even obviously today we don't find demons, at least everything concentrated in one person like Hiranyaksha, but we find smaller demons, but again, they're also creating nuisance value. I was reading a book by His Holiness Giriraj Swami on the Juhu temple and how it is described. Obviously, if you've read the book, there's one particular personality that is ascribed to be a demon who's known as Mr. Nair. However, there are other demons too who basically give the devotees a lot of grief when they were trying to get this land and try to construct the temple. And one such personality in that is actually the police commissioner for Mumbai. So obviously there's a lot of protocol and a lot of red tape involved with creating to building a temple in India. And obviously we're speaking of the 1970s where the devotees who were mostly Americans, Europeans, were there for the first time. They were trying to get accustomed to the culture there and culture working. So they approached this police commissioner with the expectation to get what's called a no objection certificate for the temple. And the police commissioner rejected their petition for a no objection certificate. And in response, he wrote down many points, but the first point that he said that your bhajans are actually creating a nuisance for the public. And Prabhupada was just infuriated as soon as he heard that. He's like, Prabhupada, obviously there were many other points that were made. One is the first point was that your bhajans are a nuisance for the community. There could be some traffic that may impede the congestion on the roads. And third was the temple structure, and a couple of other points but the main striking point was that your bhajan is a nuisance. And when Srila Prabhupada heard this, he just said, look at the demons now. And then Srila Prabhupada said, write to him. And then Srila Prabhupada was drafting what to go into the letter, and the first point he said that Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita say, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. It's the duty of everyone to preach the glories, sing my glories. So what we are saying is actually authorized by Shastra. And Prabhupada said, just everyone, all of us, just like how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nimai in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see how he in defiance to chant Kazi, took out the chanting parties, went out to stand against the opposition that was put forward by Chand Kazi here. So Srila Prabhupada was echoing a similar sentiment that we have to do this. And it is described in that pastime that devotees drafted this letter. They put forward all these points there, and they sent this letter to the... and obviously, while they were doing, they were also trying to solicit support from the other prominent leaders of Bombay, political and religious leaders to support their case. So Srila Prabhupada, we see in this instance, was not only, obviously he had 10% faith in Krishna, but he was also taking care from all other angles. He was dealing with, all the other governance that comes with it. And interestingly, when this letter was handed over to the police commissioner, they didn't hear anything for at least a week or two. Finally, the devotees went up to the place where this police commissioner was. He wasn't there. They went to his secretary, and they asked the secretary, we sent a letter for the commissioner. Did you read it? Did your boss read it? He's like, yeah, he read it, and he said it's one of the most amazing letters he's ever read in his life. He's never ever seen someone go through so much of detail in answering, my questions, and I have to say I've never read anything like this in my life. So they asked, okay, what's the decision? Oh, your petition is still declined. Because there was a deeper conspiracy that was underlying the whole saga, which obviously it comes out later in this pastime, however. So this is what the demons do even for us. If we all remember not too long ago, devotees have been persecuted in other parts of the world. They face opposition, in many different ways. So the demoniac propensity is there, and we'll see this more so in this chapter. And obviously, once this chapter concludes, once this pastime concludes, we'll see this being carrying on in the 7th chapter, in the 7th canto, in the battle, in the life of Prahlad Maharaj, where Hiranyakashipu is creating all sorts of nuisance for Prahlad Maharaj. Now, when I read this, obviously we've been reading these verses for the last few days, for the last month, and then now we're seeing what will ensue further, how Hiranyaksha will be killed. As I was reading through this, obviously the first thought that came to my mind, like, oh, this is a demon. That's not me. My first thought process was like, oh, this is Hiranyaksha. I'll never act like him. I wouldn't go around, standing as tall as the building, trying to, create havoc in the lives of others. So this doesn't relate to me. However, when you look through the pages of the Bhagavatam, you'll find stories where even the devotees, those that are actually meant to be favorably disposed to Krishna, actually act as demons. Or they do things that, makes Krishna, it causes Krishna to, come down and try to correct them. So in a similar instance, we see in the 10th canto, the pastime of, anyone can help me here? Which pastime where a devotee actually acted, obviously there are few, but where someone who's meant to be protecting, but tried to cause harm. Indra, yeah. Lord Indra we see in the pastime of the Govardhan hill. Interestingly, we wouldn't have time to go to the entire pastime, but Lord Indra, as we know, the residents of Vrindavan, followed by Nanda Maharaj and others, were actually worshipping Indra, and it was a yearly festival where they would offer their homage and they offer everything to Lord Indra, because Lord Indra supplies rain, which is important for the Vaishya, for the produce and for the cultivation of crops and grains. So obviously Krishna, coming to the scene, questions, why are you doing this? And then he is trying to convince Nanda Maharaj and the other elder Gopas. He preaches what is known as the Karma Mimamsa philosophy, and when he does so, finally the Vrajavasis, just out of their love for Krishna, they agree that, yes, we will do this Govardhan Puja. And when Indra, he hears this, that his sacrifice has been impeded, he just loses it. And I was reading this in the 10th canto. So Indra is overcome by pride, but instead, if we just pay heed to what he's actually saying. So in Canto 10, chapter 25, which is worshipping Govardhan Hill, verse number 4, Yatadudai karmamai katubhir nama no nibhai vidyam anvikshim hitva titir shanti bhava navam. What does Indra say? Their taking shelter of Krishna is just like the foolish attempt of men who abandon transcendental knowledge of the self and instead try to cross over the great ocean of material existence in the false boats of fruitive ritual sacrifices. That's Indra saying, them taking shelter of Krishna is just a foolish attempt for men who abandon transcendental knowledge of the self. Further on, he goes on to say, these cowherd men have acted inimically toward me by taking shelter of this ordinary human being, Krishna, who thinks himself very wise, but who is simply a foolish, arrogant, over-talkative child. And then finally he concludes, he speaks further, but this is where you could really see his pride being agitated. Esham Shriya Valapitanam Krishnenandham Pitadanam Dhunuta Srimadastambham Pashunnayata Sanshayam. The prosperity of these people, the Vrajavasis, has made them mad with pride, and their arrogance is backed up by Krishna. He's instructing the Samvartika cloud, now go and remove their pride and bring their animals to destruction. So that's Indra. Even though he's overcome by pride, but what does he say? That these Vrajavasis, due to their prosperity, they've been filled with pride and their arrogance is been backed by Krishna. So go and teach them a lesson. Instead, he's the one who needs to be taught a lesson. So Krishna has an expert way of dealing, and what does Krishna do? He just arranges for the whole Govardhan pastime to take place, where he's actually, it turned out to be that all the residents of Vrindavan could be with Krishna for 7 days and 7 nights, in which actually turned out to be it was all part of the pastime for Krishna to reciprocate with his devotees. So now Krishna, interestingly, how does he deal with this entire situation? He very well knows that these rains and this thunder and all this destruction is being sent forth by Indra. And when he sees this happening, how does Krishna deal with his pride, Indra's pride? He lifts up the Govardhan hill on his left pinky finger. So I myself am right-handed, but those that are not. But anyway, my left hand is less stronger than my right hand, and on my left hand, my left pinky is the weakest. So for Krishna to tell Indra, to deal with you, all I need is my pinky. This is how I can deal with you. He didn't have to go to the heavenly abode and say, Indra, let's come one-on-one. Let's try to knock it out. Rather, he just shows him this, and Indra's pride has now been, And then later on, we see Indra comes to his senses, and he goes along with Mother Surabhi to offer prayers. And it said that Krishna invited him to a private place. That means it wasn't in the audience of others. He invited him to, the acharyas say that Krishna did so that he didn't want to further humiliate Indra, because Indra had already been humiliated. And so, he invites Indra to a private place where Indra offers his prayers, and then Krishna tells him, because you were swelling with pride, that's why I had to perform this pastime to bring you to your senses. Now, please go and continue with your service. So, when we have pride in our hearts, it actually checks our love for Krishna. It chokes or it basically inhibits the mercy that we would get from our, from Krishna or acharyas. So pride is something that really stunts our devotional creeper. And then, what does the Gita speak about? How does the Gita address this? Chapter 16, verse number 4. Dambho darpo bimanascha krodha parusham evacha ajnanam chabita jasya partha sampadam asurim. Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, O son of Pritha. I'll read the purport because Srila Prabhupada really speaks on the demoniac mentality, which when I read it, it resonated with me because I could see myself, how I'm affected by it. In this verse, the royal road to hell is described. The demoniac want to make a show of religion and advancement in spiritual science. Although they do not follow the principles, they are always arrogant or proud in possessing some type of education or so much wealth. They desire to be worshipped by others and demand respectability, although they do not command respect. Over trifles, they become very angry and speak harshly, not gently. They do not know what should be done and what should not be done. They do everything whimsically according to their own desire, and they do not recognize any authority. So here we see the mindset of the demoniac mentality. And interestingly, I was reading an article by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu on this, and he was saying how there's a common saying, pride cometh the fall. I mean, pride comes before the fall. And he was describing it that in the pastime of, and those that are actually humble will actually even learn from success. However, those that are proud, they don't even learn from their failures. And we see in the pastime of the Mahabharata how Duryodhan, even though he never recognized the omnipotence of Krishna, he never recognized the virtuous qualities of the Pandavas. There were so many instances where he tried to kill them, he tried to do whatever it took for him to get rid of the Pandavas. He somehow or the other, he ignored all counsel, all advice. So much so that it came to a point where the battle of Kurukshetra was nothing but an end to his plan for sense enjoyment, where it was him and his destruction. But even then, you saw that we read that he was blaming others for his fall. He never acknowledged that it was his pride that was actually causing his downfall. On the other hand, we see that the Pandavas, even from their success, whatever they achieved, they were basically always attributing their success to Krishna. They were always glorifying the sages or the instructions from the sages. You see Yudhishthir, you see Arjuna. They are always Mother Kunti. We see that how she was always grateful and filled with gratitude for the Lord. Even though amidst reversals, amidst success, because quite often it happens that when we are successful, we generally don't tend to contemplate or think, what do I learn from it? It's only when we are faced with some reversal that we actually start to think, okay, maybe I need to improve somewhere. However, those that, as you see here, filled with pride, it leads to arrogance, and then arrogance, eventually, we'll see later in the 16th chapter of the Gita, it actually drives them further to ignorance. So, pride is the start of things, and in the life of a sadhaka, of us, we should also guard against these lower tendencies, because this can actually, as I say, it can stunt our progress in our Krishna consciousness. Because next week we'll be celebrating the Rath Yatra, and leading up to it, I was reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I see, before actually I would go there, listen to a class by Radha Vinod Prabhu, and he was describing that how the Lord, he's Abhigya Swarat. The first verse of the Bhagavatam describes that he's fully independent. What does the Lord do when he's fully independent? He's riding the chariot of Arjuna. He's worshipping the Brahmanas. He's doing the Rajasuya sacrifice. He's basically, collecting the shoes of everyone there. That's the Lord when he's fully, his fully independent nature. When we get given slight independence, what do? We tend to exert our independence on others, and that's where things go actually wrong. So in the 10th canto, on this chapter of Govardhan Hill, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur basically says our whole society is actually plagued by what's called the me syndrome. So it's the vanity that we all go through. It's me, and me. Once I was listening to a Japa retreat by the great Burijan Prabhu. And Burijan Prabhu was saying that each of us picture our lives as a movie. And in that movie, we consider ourselves to be the hero or the heroine. And we go around with this mantra that I am the hero, I am the heroine. However, the problem is that the very next person right next to us is also picturing his or her life to be a movie in which they are the hero and the heroine. So they are saying, wait a minute, you're not the hero, I'm the hero. So this universe is filled with people who are competing to be the hero, not realizing that it's actually not possible. So that's the extent of our disease. And what Hiranyaksha is actually depicting here, or is embodying here, is the fullest extent of this madness of vanity, that how we consider ourselves to be the center of attraction. So, as I was describing earlier, we are approaching Rath Yatra, and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find a very instructive pastime here, which is actually about to happen very soon. It's called the cleansing of the Gundicha Marjana, the Gundicha temple, the Gundicha Marjana pastime. And it's actually described in the 12th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, verse number 135, for those that would like to read it. And in that verse, I'll just read it out here. Ei mata purudvara age patayata shakala shodila tahake varni bekata. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were also cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. So this is the verse, and then the purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's a very beautiful purport. It's over 3 to 4 pages long, but it's filled with instructions. And in this pastime, we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going up to the authorities of the Gundicha temple and asking them to please provide all, asking for permission if he could and his team could clean the Gundicha temple. And then the authorities tell him, even though cleaning the temple is, it's not a fit service for you, but however, we'll acknowledge your request. And they give him brooms and, the water and everything else for him to clean. And in the process of cleaning, we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they first start cleaning the temple with a broom, and as they're cleaning, they pick up straw, dust, grains of sand, and it is described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was cleaning, it said that his cloth, so they would all pile up the dust, fill it up, in a cloth, and then dump it outside. It is said that his cloth was actually much larger, had the biggest proportion of dust, grains of sand and straws than the others. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us by example, and this is the process of Cheto Darpana Marjanam, that through the process of hearing and chanting we actually cleanse our own hearts, and how the Lord here is actually showing on how is this meant to be done. He's showing by his own art. So there's achar and there's prachar. So achar is when you speak or when you speak some instructions, but prachar is where you actually you exemplify by your own behavior. So the sadachar. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees are chanting Krishna, 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 and then they're cleaning up. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we see that his pile of dust was much bigger than the others. Then finally, as he's cleaning, it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would encourage those that were, clean nicely, and then he would chastise those that weren't cleaning properly. So he was again showing by example how should one correct, one who's playing the role of an acharya. And then after that, it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again cleaned for a second time. And so the analogy that our choice described that when we first start cleaning, when we first come to the association of devotees, it happens so that there are anarthas, we give up, our sinful habits. So that's gross contamination. Slowly, as we start progressing in bhakti, we clean and clean further. We see that we overcome with subtle contamination. It means that contamination of, lobha, pride, fame, respect. And that, again, there's always the need for constant cleaning. So I was remembering once my Guru Marakira Swami was at a retreat with Sachinandan Swami. And he was saying at this retreat, Sachinandan Swami told him a very interesting story. He said that a lot of times we think when we take up Krishna consciousness, when we begin a practice of bhakti, our progress will be linear. We'll just go up linear. We don't realize that it's actually, we go up and down. And he was saying, Sachinandan Swami was echoing the words of a Christian saint that, there'll be obstacles in our way that would come through. And Sachinandan Swami, again, depicted this through a beautiful analogy that, when we first start chanting, we chant enthusiastically. Obviously, devotees chant enthusiastically, depending on their vigilance and their purity. But especially for myself, when I heard this, it really dawned on me and how those instructions were so applicable. That we first start chanting, and when we're chanting, oh, I'm going back to Godhead. And as we chant, we picture ourselves on a road, just going, chanting smoothly, without any obstructions. And then finally we come across a fork. And when we come across a fork, we don't know whether to go right or left. But what do? We keep chanting. So when we keep, we somehow we keep chanting, we keep following the path. Then a little while later, we see that we come across a landslide. And then they're just filled with boulders and rocks, and we just go under, and then next thing you know, that we're covered by rocks and sand. And I'm like, oh, what did I get myself into? This is just not helping me any further. But somehow or the other, we just, cleanse ourselves, we continue with the process, we continue walking. And in that way, we go a bit further. So we pass through the fork, we went past the landslide. Now what? Now all of a sudden we see there are some natives hiding in the bushes who are waiting to attack us. And then we see ourselves again in some difficulty. Now how do we defend ourselves? So we defend ourselves, we try to be further vigilant, and then we keep going. So what Sachinanda Maharaj was trying to say that despite all these obstacles, we keep going in a practice of bhakti. It's like, for example, if you're climbing a mountain, our goal is to climb Mount Everest. But when we climb Mount Everest, it's not that it's be a linear path for us. We keep going up, but there'll be some valleys and peaks. So we go up, we come down, and we go up again, then we come down. But eventually our goal is to reach the top. So we go with that intent to reach the top. And whatever obstacles come our way, we continue with the process of hearing and chanting. And one very interesting note that was made here is that this is Maharaj saying, under all circumstances we have to keep association with pure devotees. The association of pure devotees will help us in any condition. There's a verse in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that states that the association of devotees is the root cause of devotional service, mulahaya, and that even after one develops love for Krishna, the association of devotees is still essential. Krishna bhakti janma mulahaya ai sadhu sangha, Krishna prema janme teno puna mukya anga. The root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is the association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential. And then there was another point that was being made is how we always remain under the shelter of a spiritual master. That's utmost importance for us to do. And in this regard, there was a pastime that was, it was stated by Giriraj Swami, where he said that in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada was walking with some disciples, and as he was walking with some disciples, they came across an embankment, an upward hill, and one of the disciples went up the embankment and then extended his hand to Srila Prabhupada to come up. And Srila Prabhupada walked up, and the moment Srila Prabhupada walked up, he took his hand and he just just let go of his hand. And what he was trying to tell the disciple was that this is the Mayavadis. They feel that they need the spiritual master only up to the point of liberation, and after liberation they can continue doing whatever they were doing. So in bhakti, the means is the same as the end. In a conditioned state we hear and chant, and in a purified state we hear and chant. There's never, it's just that in hearing and chanting in the purified state becomes more and more relishable. The ecstasy keeps on increasing. So that's what Prabhupada was trying to make a point to to his disciples, that the Mayavadis are that they want to come to a point where they feel that they no longer need the Guru. So again, like I said, in a practice of bhakti, and especially in this pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where he's the first round of cleaning, he cleaned, or him and the others cleaned up, but however they went for a second round of cleaning, so that's described. First round is considered to be the gross contamination, which are sinful habits. However, there are subtle contaminations that also, that we have to work on. And then finally, what does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do after the first and second round? He goes outside the temple and he cleans everything. He cleans the roads even outside the temple. So further checking that there'll be no other dirt that will come through to the temple, which means that despite of our constant cleansing, we should be vigilant to external association or whatever association that that can bring about these impurities within us. So this entire pastime of Gundicha Marjana is actually just demonstrating the process of Chetodarpana Marjana, that how we should cleanse our heart with hearing and chanting, with attentiveness, which will help us root out these material desires in our heart. Now, it is not an offense to have material desires. It's an offense to maintain those material desires. As we read every morning during Japa, the 10th offenses, to maintain material attachments even after we've heard so many instructions on the matter. So even after hearing so much, even us maintaining that's an anartha. So for us to get rid of the anarthas is we take full shelter of the hearing and chanting of Krishna. And so Krishna, hearing and chanting of Krishna's glories, serving his devotees, serving the instruction of the Guru is what will help us overcome what's, if, due to our conditioning, it'll help us overcome our lower natures. Yeah. And again, that's, like I said, when we see the lives of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, we obviously see the full embodiment of this. But however, as Srila Prabhupada said, in the previous yugas, in Satya Yuga, the demigods and demons lived on two different planets. In Treta Yuga, the demons and demigods lived on the same planet but in different countries. Lord Ram lived in Ayodhya, and Ravana lived in Lanka. In Dwapara Yuga, we see the demigods and demons living in the same country, in the same family. However, in Kali Yuga, the demons and demigods are actually living in the same country, in the same family, and actually in the same person. So I always remember this anecdote by His Holiness Radha Swami. Within us, there's a good dog and a bad dog. And our conscience or our actions will be determined which dog do we listen to. So if we starve the bad dog will bark. But if we starve the bad dog, then eventually our virtuous self will actually prevail and we'll be able to transcend our lower nature. So I've 5 to 9 now. I think I've gone over time. Yes, you have any questions? Yep. Yeah, we can say it that way. However, this is our. Once I was hearing Devamrita Swami say this, that the demons very well know. If you read the seventh canto, you'll see Hiranyakashipu speaking philosophy of all the people. And he's speaking philosophy, he's telling his sister-in-law of, what are you grieving for? The soul is, eternal. But what does he do after that? Yeah? So what's the point here? So similarly with Devanand Maharaj was saying that the demons very well know that Vishnu is the source of everything. However, they see that position of Vishnu is changeable. That means let me try and take that position. They very well know that if I do certain things properly, I'll get the result. He knows he's found out the address, and he's actually, for example, there's this famous, we also see Krishna saying in the Bhagavad Gita that those that, are averse to me, I'll see them as death. There's a very famous Persian folklore that there is, in a marketplace, there is this trader who's been told that he's about to die at dusk or whatever, and he wants to avoid it, and he says that your death is going to happen at 6 p.m. today, or whatever that's been predicted. So he's been told that he's going to die. However, he wants to defy it, he wants to avoid it, and then within a matter of a few hours, he comes across a very ghastly looking person. He looks at this person, he's like, I need to somehow run away from this person. So he runs away from this person, and finally he gets a horse, and I can't remember the exact details, but he confides in some other person that he's about to die, and he's just been chased by this ghastly looking person. So finally he gets a horse, and this horse, but this horse can take him to the farthest regions of, some other city, in a fairly short amount of time. So he takes his horse and he runs away. And when this person whom he's confided in, at 4 p.m., whatever, we can make up these times, but when he sees this ghastly person, and he's like, who are you? And he's like, oh, I'm the Lord of Death. And he said, but weren't you going to be killing, wasn't this person under your jurisdiction? He's like, yes, when I saw him at 4 p.m. or whatever, like I said, we can just make up this time, I was thinking, how is this person going to make up to the destination where I'm going to, take him in such a short amount of time? I was just confused. Now that you've told me he's there, that's where my appointment is fixed to be. So, whatever the circumstance may be, we can't defy Krishna. So this was the plan. So we see the foolishness of Hiranyaksha there, that he very well knows he's been told that he's about to, be the prey for, dogs and vultures and so on and so forth. Yet he wants to carry on with his mission, and that's basically our vanity. Even though we know that we see everyone going through the process of death, but somehow or the other we feel that it won't ever happen to us, and we carry on with the program. So the moral of the story is that we should always, be submissive and try to surrender our lives or surrender to the process of Krishna consciousness to the extent that we fully can, because that's our ultimate shelter. So in the Nectar of Devotion, there's a verse, I can't remember Nectar of Devotion, but it is said that Rupa Goswami, the 6 Goswamis were, I can't remember the exact prayer, but it actually says they were kind, they made friends with the ruffians as well. So we see that the 6 Goswamis, even though during the Mughal period, they were able to maintain alliances with those, with the Mughal emperors, even though they were in one sense, demoniac. They were destroying temple, but they were able to maintain alliances with them just to get enough, for the upkeep of the temple. So those, obviously, Narada Muni is following in that, he's coming in that, he's coming in a parampara where, for example, I remember at least in our contemporary times, there's a devotee of famous Srila Prabhupada disciple named Jayananda Prabhu. This Jayananda Prabhu would always try to save, obviously in those days there wasn't much access to money as such because the movement was fairly new. So Jayananda Prabhu would actually go and get donations for fruits, vegetables, flowers, bhoga for the temple. And in that instance, he would